Hey, you're listening to Urine Therapy podcast. I mean, Apostate is on the Fringe. We're your hosts. Oh, wait, we're an atheist leftist podcast that talks about current events. And we're your hosts. I'm Alistair.
I'm Dustin.
And I'm Sam.
I'm not drinking piss, though. I'm drinking... Oh, this is rough. The can looked wonderful, but this is gonna be tough to get through. It's really syrupy. So I picked up the Trimtad Brewing out of Alabama Maple Cakes. It's an imperial stout with maple syrup, molasses, and walnuts. It's a very strong beverage, is all I'm trying to say, and it's going to probably coat my throat the whole night with some thick syrup. Not as bad, like it's worse than last week's the German chocolate cake I had.
I stopped by the gas station and just picked up a big can of Yingling Raging Eagle Mango, which was like the only can of beer they had there that was not an IPA. The only one.
That sounds like fucking fruitcake vomit.
Is this your first taste?
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Okay.
It tastes like it's
So
a light
It tastes
beer
like
with mango
a
flavor.
Yingling mango, which is like a mango that someone dropped in the store. And
I didn't even know Yingling even dabbled in anything. Like I thought they were adventurous when they got the Hershey's.
I know. It seems like they're exploring more flavors and trying to branch out now, because I've never seen this before.
Craft beer. That's
Yeah.
what I'm for.
Yingling's going to come out with the fucking seltzers probably next.
That Budweiser already did.
Yeah.
I'm drinking gay beer.
I love that so much.
What's your name? What's your name? Did you already say that?
I think I said it's Sam.
Oh.
I'm Sam, and I'm drinking gay beer.
It is literally called gay beer. Where is that?
It's the beer has a little ascot on it. It's a golden lager, and it's from Brooklyn.
I want to drink gay beer.
I like your comment when you opened the beer and said I had too much head, which is appropriate for a gay beer. So on second taste of the maple cakes, it's not. I think it was just like shock and like first taste shock of it. It's not bad as a follow up. I don't know I would get this again though. It's really fucking heavy. When I poured this, like normally the head of a beer will go down. This did not, and it actually grew exponentially and overflowed even though I'd stopped pouring. So it's a pretty carbonated fucking beverage.
It looks thick.
The Yingling Mango, I think, tastes better than urine would.
So, Al, you do this to yourself, and you keep doing this to yourself. You have done two things this week. You created a sock account for TikTok to get to the other side of TikTok, which apparently you said is harder to do than it was to get to your natural.
I think it's because it's reading my phone, and it realizes like there's another account on my phone that is looking at other stuff. So it was still trying to feed me that.
Some leftist shit still.
But now I open it and it looks like Barbie dolls with bad eyelashes that are constantly whining.
Do you know that fucking Facebook group you got me into for some reason, the Backwoods Southern Country Folk group, whatever? It's a while back, but it's literally those people that post in there. Like, they look overly, like, spray tan. Like, gross.
Yes.
They look like they're trying
eyelashes.
to become somebody on Fox News.
And they're not even talking. They're just standing. They're sitting there with just, like, words over them.
Yeah.
And they're all some are are you getting mostly Jesus-y right now? I know you had the cringe cop one.
Well, I got some Jesus-y ones. I mean, it's a lot of Trump supporting ones. I'm starting to get into the really out there ones, but I have to seek it out and start loving these videos, which it pains me to do, but I'm like hitting the heart react, like show me more, and like wanting to throw up at the same time.
So eventually you'll get to like the racist part, the anti-LGBT. Have you hit any of those things yet?
Not really.
Anti-vax stuff yet?
Anti-vax, I'm there. Yes.
Okay.
You should try for Chinese propaganda talk.
I need to. I probably won't do that. I need to start looking for the Bob Saget stuff. That'll probably take me to where I want to be on TikTok.
Okay, but now the other thing you did was, and why? And then you sent me screenshots of the most horrendous shit I've seen in words since some of the darkest stories on Reddit.
This has been like it's the highlight of my time
You joined another urine therapy group, the one that Elizabeth Murphy was in previously, the one who ran for local council.
She was in.
She was in. She's out. Yeah, I think when the screenshots came out, she ducked out. But there was one that didn't make it out in the bunch of screenshots that were being shared last year during elections, and it involves she's asking if anybody ever drank urine while they were pregnant, and she's feeling her progesterone. She thought her progesterone was too low, and she wondered if drinking her urine would give her more, because she's figuring she's peeing some of it out, and if she can just keep drinking it, then it'll add that extra.
Too much different from homeopathy.
Homeopathy, you mean?
Whatever.
Then what was that post you shared? Was that on that group where she was literally dosing her friends?
That one was a Poe. That was a troll.
Okay. Wow. Okay, good. Thank
fuck.
God.
When I got into, because that one's in this Urine Magic group, and I think most of Urine Magic, seems like troll.
Urine Magic.
It's a lot of trolls, or a lot of people that seem like they're from Africa.
I would just expect people with a fetish that are lost.
No, you're not really seeing that. It's a lot of people from Africa, which we saw this with the Satanic Ministry, where they reach out for help in other ways. But it's weird because a lot of them are like, I want my boyfriend to come back with me. Will drinking pee help? And I can't tell because, I mean...
Now you have to feed him the pee, lady.
Right.
Yeah, it has to be your own urine.
You put your pubes in his food.
The other group is called Urine Therapy, and there's 10,000 members, and it seems like the people posting are serious, 100% serious about the shit they're asking.
Okay, so the Urine Magic one is mainly Poe, trolls, a few outliers, but the Urine Therapy one
Therapy is the group to join.
No, it's not. No one else should join this, Al. You do this to yourself because you have this sick feeling to entertain yourself yet enrage yourself at the same time.
It's my entertainment.
I mean, I do it to myself because I know which articles to seek on WBIR that will enrage me at the same time, but also kind of entertain me with the enragement. And also,
you need to just be a bigger troll and go to the piss kink groups and tell them about these groups and try to fill those groups up with those people.
That's one of my friends got into the Urine Magic group and posted something about how sex has greatly improved his life and it's better than the little blue pill and all this. Right. So I got in the comments on that one. I was like, my wife really says it improves sex with her too. She likes to drink it during sex, straight from the spout.
Wow.
I would be like, is squirt piss? If not drinking it.
But some of the things that you've gone out of your way to tag me in these as well to make sure that I see these horrendous posts.
I did, yes.
Yeah, why? I mean, not only do you send them to me in our messaging app, but then you make sure to do it publicly. So, it's... And the one...
I switch. Some of them I only send to you, and some of them I post online.
The one you posted online was fucking grotesque. She was talking about, shitting herself and all because of all sorts of problems with ingesting the
urine. One from today.
What was the one with the woman who was putting it in her eyes?
That's Elizabeth Murphy.
Yeah, that was that was Elizabeth Murphy from last year.
But I think one today was talking about having a urinary tract infection. And they're like, what can I do to treat this? And the admin of the Urine Therapy group is, drink your urine. And she's like, I have an infection, though. Is this okay? He's like, yeah, it's totally fine.
It's enhanced urine.
He goes, is it red yet? And then he goes on and he's like, people have drank their urine once it turns red, and they've drank it with pus in it, and they've gotten better.
You're literally going to turn off all of our listeners. Our listeners have turned off the episode.
I don't know. I don't know if this guy is a troll. If he is one fucked up individual, because he has this group of 10,000 people, and he's like, yeah, just doesn't matter what the fucking issue is, just drink your fucking urine. And he's going to kill people if he's just joking. He's going to probably kill somebody either way with this, because there's got to be, That can't be healthy.
No, some of these things are definitely unhealthy, but I'd like to point out that we lost probably 50% of anyone who was listening to this point. They've turned off the episode and moved and skipped
Maybe
after
we
that
got
bullshit.
a few.
All my
listeners,
friends are
actually
like my friends that are listening. They're expecting this. I think I got tagged yesterday. Within I went to work at 6:30, and right when I left work, someone tagged me in a post about drinking urine. By the time I got home, which was only 3.5 hours later, 5 different fucking people tagged me in urine posts. At this point, it's up to 10, 11 different times that I've been posts. So this is fucking wonderful. People think about drinking urine, and I come to mind.
How are you going to get on Piss Talk?
I did it to myself.
Before we get into the first topic, the first real topic, we have a quick correction from last week's episode when we were talking about some of the people some other structures that had been burned recently, and you said it was not.
Yeah, so there was a black church that was burnt down here. It was arson, but that was, I think, in 2014.
14 or 15.
Yeah, and so it wasn't that one. It was Catholic Charities,
okay.
And I did some reading on that one, and I don't know if it was intentional. It almost sounded like a houseless person went into. It was deemed arson,
do remember
but
that. Okay.
The situation around it, it seemed like a houseless person went into I don't know what the weather was like. Maybe that was trying to keep warm or something, and a fire started. It I got the impression reading the details it might have been accidental.
Oh, okay.
But they still considered it arson.
But we did just want to do issue the correction because I failed to do so in post. So my apologies. And why is Q... Okay, so our first topic. Why is Q going after Bob Saget? What's the deal with that?
All right, so Bob Saget died about an hour after he died. I had gotten as much urine therapy as I can handle. So
wait, how much? Just hold real quick. How much can you handle?
Surprisingly, more than most people, it seems. But so I had gotten out of the urine therapy groups, and I was still kind of wanting to see what the right wingers were talking about. So I go to Telegram. And I go into Q groups, and I see them start posting clips from a roast. One of the early 2000 Comedy Central roast, where Gilbert Gottfried is talking about how Bob Saget in 1990 raped and murdered a girl. And other people, he also made jokes about him molesting Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. And so I watched all this developed. I saw new posts being made about it. And I mean, we say QAnon. It started in QAnon, but some leftists are sharing this as well.
They picked it up and ran with it.
Leftist liberals, I've seen every side of the spectrum talk about it. It
spread. Well, what it is they started making memes. They started making memes without the context of the roast and stuff. And that's how it, and that's what they do. That's what QAnon does. They come up with these conspiracy theories, and they do everything they can. They go to take it to Twitter, and they'll make it, they leave off details and stuff. They use pedophilia a lot because it hits people in the emotions. It causes that emotional response that makes them want to do something about it, and it draws them in and makes you more susceptible to other theories and shit.
Right? Didn't they wildly go after? Was it Wayfair or?
It was Wayfair, but that was what was it? 2020 maybe that. Somebody had noticed that, I mean, they do. Wayfair, if you go to their website, they have ridiculous fucking prices on some of their things, which I know somebody who works at Wayfair, and they told me, they're like, yeah, we just have fucking shitty coders and stuff like that. We just have people who can't run this stuff right, so they make mistakes in typing in the things. So these ridiculous price items supposedly had names of missing children. And so they believed that you were really putting in an order for a child to have sex with.
So easily.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And people on the left, I saw leftists doing it too, mostly tankies. And I think probably the people going after Bob Saget, there probably some tankies doing it. I don't know. I have one former friend who I'm sure is all over this, but He's a tanky.
I haven't seen any of the leftist posts about Bob Saget, but I know some people had commented on your post when you were kind of clapping back at some of those things because they were bought in with some of those claims. Mm-hmm. And there was also the ordeal. It was maybe... Go ahead.
The biggest thing I think that makes people uncomfortable, and I kind of understand why, but I also, context, there's so many things that go into it.
Come from an age where you could tell jokes.
Well, there's that, but there was a doll on set of Full House that was made to look like Mary-Kate and Ashley, and I'm sure that they used the doll mostly from behind during certain scenes. And he, they were talking about, he's always had a crude sense of humor anyway, but he was talking about how hard it was for the cast in general to keep that wholesome thing. So they would all make inappropriate jokes at time. And he was doing something. He ended up humping the doll, and it was probably a 5-minute thing. I can't tell, or 5-second thing. Sorry, a 5-second thing. Yeah, a 5-second thing. I know. I can't tell you how many inanimate objects I have humped in my life.
Right.
And it's there's times that I'm making a joke and I just look for whatever's standing up next to me and I start humping it. That's what in my mind is the most probable reason. It wasn't like he was fucking molesting this doll.
Opened the door and he was just had his dick in a doll. That's
right.
what they make it sound like.
Right, and it's not like he was by himself alone in a room doing it. No, he did this in front of other people as a fucking he probably wasn't even talking. The actual joking around probably wasn't even about the doll. He just grabbed the doll because it was there. That's what makes the most sense to me.
He's just known as a really dirty comedian.
He is. He's
dirty.
And that kind of comedy, Gen Z doesn't like that kind of comedy, so it's dead. So, he's of an older generation where you could joke about fucking dolls of your daughters.
I mean, and not only that, but his take on the aristocrats joke is also... I mean, I don't think it's terrible. It's one of the dirtiest things I've ever heard from him, because when I grew up, the only thing I knew of Bob Saget was him on Full House. I hadn't seen any of his anything that told me that this is a crude, dirty motherfucker, and he will curse and just fucking say the most outlandish, dirty fucking thing without blinking an eye. And my dad actually introduced me to his version of the aristocrats. So I'm sitting there just watching, and my jaw's just dropping as it progresses because of how fucking dirty that thing is.
The whole point of that joke is to see how far you can push being dirty.
Yeah, it's the shock value. That's what it is. And his comedy is shock value. That's what he goes out after, is that shock. And he did it really fucking well.
Has anyone checked to see what he knew about Hillary Clinton? Has there been that yet? Did they say anything like that?
Would they tie him into Pizzagate or something?
Yeah,
because of
they were tying him to Pizzagate, but they tied Betty White to Pizzagate.
Oh,
as well.
okay.
Yes,
all the Hollywood elites.
She needed the blood of the virgins.
That's what it was. Yeah, because she was.
Did she say it as a joke? Or did she
somebody asked her in an interview how she managed to age so well, and she talked about moisturizing, and she, drank lots of water.
Avoiding the color green.
Yeah, and then she's like, and I drank the blood of virgins, but they're in, they're hard to come by these days. And they took off and made that as proof that she's part of they can't fucking take a joke. They can't take any jokes.
No, what Sam said is repeated is that jokes are canceled.
Yeah. I mean, and you got to take context of all of this stuff on.
They can't understand context. I keep seeing that in movie world, that a movie will be about age differences, and in the context of the movie, it's not being this is great, but they have no sense of context or what is actually being said. They just see what they don't like and they scream about it.
Well, it's you were talking about Gen Z not being able to handle certain kind of jokes too. Gen Z tried really hard to cancel Big Mouth.
Oh yeah, because
the one scene in the first season where he figures out how to masturbate, they said that was pedophilia, or that was pretty much child porn.
That was child porn.
Yes, that's what, and I've seen that from a lot of, like, the younger crowd does not fucking like Big Mouth because of that.
They're not going to be very fun. They're going to grow up and get hit by a truck by the real world. It's going to be pretty sad.
They are Gen Z. I mean, for all Gen Z is useful for, they are also super fucking quick to.
They're the ones that make Twitter toxic as fuck. I have seen there's a lot of leftist and liberal YouTubers and people that it was funny to watch their careers because they like jumped on like the cancel culture train and then they got canceled because Gen Zers combed through their shit and found one thing they didn't like, and now all of a sudden all these like liberal leftist YouTubers that were all for cancel culture like, whoa, wait a second, and now it's on me because no one's safe. We're not safe, that's for fucking sure. No one is safe from Gen Z cancel culture.
They actually remember they went after. It didn't gain a lot of traction, but they tried going after fucking Eminem.
Yeah. How many years? I think they're on like the 4th season of Big Mouth, so they didn't even cancel that.
Yeah,
like it's still
I just
going.
finished watching the show. I still like it.
I mean, it's like the thing is it wasn't displaying that as a like child porn. In order for it to be child porn, the point of it is to arouse people. And that scene did not do it. What it was is very fucking relatable to anybody who's been through puberty.
I just finished reading a French graphic novel that M. Night Shyamalan's Old is based on, and that's about kids aging really fast, so their clothes fall off because they outgrow them, and then once they have the mind of like toddlers, but they grow up to be, teenage size in a matter of hours, and there's a sex scene, and then in the reviews, everyone's saying that it's child porn.
Like, yeah.
Just that kind of stance.
Did they not say the same thing about Old because it's technically the same concept? Mentally, they were like,
well, that movie didn't have no titties in it when they. I don't know. They just had, French people. See, that's the thing. This is American Gen Z culture because because America is a puritanical country. We've always been a puritanical country.
They're afraid of nudity so much more.
On sex and nudity.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, America can't handle sex and nudity, but they also have this weird love-hate thing with it, But the French, they don't give a fuck. They don't even see it twice. Like, you will watch a French movie, and you might see an 8-year-old naked with their top off, and they don't see anything wrong with that because they're like, we're not sexualizing it, so they don't think twice about it. But Americans sees that, and they're like, child porn. It's like, you're the one sexualizing it when you look at it and put that context on it. That's not even in the mind of French people when they see that.
Yeah. I love Gen Z, though, but they're
useful in some things. Very, very.
I mean, you gotta think what these fucking kids have been raised around, Well,
I hope they grow the fuck up.
Now, my kid doesn't buy into the Big Mouth thing. They don't like the show, but they're just like, it's just not my thing. So I found out Gen Z was, jumping on Bob Saget, and I went into the kids' room. I was like, he's not a fucking child molester. Do not spread that stuff. And they're like, what? And I explained what all's going on, and they just gave the biggest eye roll. They're like, yeah, no. But so a lot of people are going around saying he molested Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Out of nothing.
Because of the roast. Because of the roast. That's where it came from.
Like I said, jokes are canceled. I've literally seen, without any irony, he made these jokes, and that's a secret confession.
He didn't even... Well, the thing is he didn't even make those jokes. Those jokes were made on the Comedy Central roast.
Right.
Which the Comedy Central roast, the whole point of those were to be as offensive and shocking as you can. Not to tell the truth. Like, those things were all really horrible, but funny. They were so bad, the jokes that were told. But, what I was going to say about that...
Well, I know that some of the comments from yours and probably what you had to counter was that they took those claims from the third party who was not Mary-Kate or Ashley.
That's where I was going. So when these first started, when I was in the Q group and I first started seeing it come up, I'm really, anytime I see something in there, I immediately go try to find other sources for stuff. So when I started seeing the accusations about Mary-Kate and Ashley, I started digging. Like, does he have any actual allegation from a victim? Ever? No. no victim of Bob Saget's has ever come forward. It's all been internet rumor from, like, with no source. It's just fucking people saying this happened, and people believed it.
But even the leftists just ran with it, though, and Q fueled it. But the left,
they know how to manipulate.
We say leftists.
Liberal,
I saw some
I
leftists
think
saying
liberals
it too, but
may do it because, I mean, liberals are susceptible to a lot of that, like a lot of that kind of stuff, especially with pedophilia.
Hey, if they weren't susceptible to propaganda, they wouldn't be liberals.
Well, I think another aspect is that they're always they're wanting to believe the accuser, and so if they hear a story that someone has been accused,
no
and they think it's from a good source, they're going to want to stand by the victim of that.
But I when the first person said that they saw leftists sharing it too, I was like, oh well, I guess I'm cleaning out my friends list today.
You did lose some people. I saw that happen.
No, I only lost one.
Okay,
one
just
person
one.
unfriended me, but she didn't even try to engage in debate. As soon because she's like, I find some of the things he does disgusting. And I was like, yeah, you can find his jokes gross, but that doesn't make him a child molester. I was like, one's an opinion and the other one is false. And she's like, I think I'll just unfriend. And she's the only one who unfriended me. She said something about how she posted links that predate QAnon. And there were some about the doll because it was in his memoir that he wrote. Mm-hmm. He openly talked about that, but like, once again, if it was inappropriate, you would think someone on...
The whole point of him even saying that was him... In the context of, he was a really fucking dirty comedian that was hired to be this wholesome dad. Mm-hmm. And that whole point of him saying that was even like, I'm on this wholesome set, but I'm still my dirty jokester self.
Right, and he said it wasn't just him. They all kind of did it. But I looked at the links that she sent, and it was really funny because none of them are reputable. Not a single one.
She went to page 6 of Google.
Yeah, it's just blogs. It's little blogs. But on the second one, it talks about the roast, and there's a paragraph in here that it's important to note that the early 2000s Comedy Central roast were... like, all the jokes were really offensive. It's like that was their goal, to be as offensive as possible, not to, like, be true. Their goal was never to be true.
The roast just turns into an intervention.
And so, I mean, and she completely missed that. But it pretty much, that even her own source was like, it was total bullshit, And then, yeah, the other one, I didn't even bother looking into it because I could tell it was another blog. And it's like, those aren't sources. Those are blogs. That's not a news source. That's not somebody coming forward with an accusation. That's somebody's goddamn fucking blog.
Yeah, again, no credible sources. I mean, it's Bob Saget. Like, if anything, to someone who was, America's dad, well, that was fucking Cosby, right? But I mean, he was Full House.
Those allegations were
those were But Bob Saget, Full House, he was this wholesome person. If anything came out that discredited him coming, being this wholesome person, a TV personality, by and large, for how most people knew him, it would have been huge fucking news.
That man lived to 65 years old without any allegation against him. In Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's really fucking impressive.
He was a really nice guy.
Yeah. Even Mary-Kate and Ashley came out and said he was the kindest, most compassionate and generous person they have ever known. Yeah,
it's just in really sad circumstances, and I know the initial reports. What do you have?
Well, we're talking about this, though. It's really important when we're talking about how people have jumped on this on both sides, like liberals, a lot on the right. Bob Saget's Jewish.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. The anti-Semitism has come out.
That's where a lot of that's rooted. That's, I think, part of the reason why it's so easy for some people to believe it.
Yeah, when I was hearing people say that, I kept saying, like, oh, I didn't think he was Catholic. I'm like... if you told me he was Catholic and a pedophile, I'd be like, okay.
Right.
I mean, everyone who is a Catholic is at least okay with pedophilia, or they wouldn't be a Catholic.
Well, the right says that about Jews as well.
Well,
and it's
Jewish
all
people
because
don't fuck their kids, though.
It all comes from it's rarely used today, but the the way some Orthodox Jewish
That's
church,
not sexual, though. That's just a ritual
circumcise.
act. That's a ritual.
It's a ritual act.
That's a ritual, and it's not sexual.
But yes, part of the ritual includes
It's sucking foreskin off a dick.
Yeah, the priest or the not priest.
Rabbi.
Yeah,
well, that's still a crude practice because you know how many people have gotten like STDs.
Yes, it's crude. It should.
But it's not sexual in nature.
It's not.
Correct,
no.
But you know, I get right now initial reporting. I know we're going to take. It's going to be months. I think they said before they get an autopsy because he was found dead. You know, in his hotel room alone.
No signs of drugs.
signs of drug use. I guess they did a quick talk screen. I'm assuming.
The man's 65 years old. He died in a heart attack. They said he was tucked into bed
with
his left arm over his chest.
Yeah, that's sad.
And his other arm off to the side. I'm willing to put money on the fact that man just had a heart attack.
The sad part is he just wrapped up a show or was talking about his show. I know he issued a statement. What was that statement?
He's pretty much saying I'm back. He was excited about the future and what to come. He's like, I got so much more coming out. Just wait, and yeah.
That's sad. Rest in peace, Bill. Bob Saget.
Yeah.
So speaking of Q, though. Q and the right conspiracy, and then some Proud Boys stormed the Capitol on January 6th, and Merrick Garland and the Justice Department finally came down with some charges.
Oh, that's not really against Q. That's the fucking Oath Keepers.
I'm saying, but Q pushed that, and then the Oath Keepers ran with it.
I don't think it was. I think he was going that way to begin with. His name's Stuart Rhodes, the leader of Oath Keepers. Oath Keepers were around long before Q became a thing.
Right.
They were already, like, the whole point is he was recruiting ex-military, ex-police officers in case there was ever a need to rise up against the government. So it's pretty, like, that's their whole goal, was to rise up against the government. So he, around 2016, he started radicalizing all of the members even more.
Isn't that kind of ironic? They're recruiting ex-military people who are sworn to uphold the defense.
That's what they think they're doing.
Really?
That's how he got these people in. It's our job to uphold. So you make that oath for life when you join the military. So that was their way of coming together and saying, well, if the government ever strays from the Constitution, we'll be there to take up arms against our government. So and they were kind of a quiet group. They've always been they've always kind of been radical, but things just got. He led them, obviously, to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. They were the ones, so there were videos going out shortly after January 6th that showed groups of people in military gear that were going through the crowd, rushing towards the front with one hand on the shoulder in front of the person in front of them to keep together.
Right.
It's come out that they had training sessions where they learned those techniques. Stuart Rhodes, and he never entered it. He got everybody else. He trained everybody to do the work for him, while he sat back, probably thinking he'd have no fucking consequences for it. But nope. Even though he did not enter the Capitol, he has sedition charges.
Yep. So him and 10 other members of the Oath Keepers were all charged with seditious conspiracy, and which is the harshest charges yet to be filed in over 745 people that have been charged thus far. Mm-hmm. Merrick Garland came out a week or two back. Especially on
the day before, yeah,
day before the anniversary, that they're going hard at these folks. So, at least this Justice Department is bringing these charges to the people who plan to fucking overthrow the government. And we talked about it then. They literally had a fucking noose that, ready to hang fucking Mike Pence. They had ammunition. Now, a lot of these people were smart and actually left it in the hotels.
Yeah, but no, so what he did is he formed two teams. He got his guys into two different teams. One would go to the Capitol. The other one would stay at the hotels in Virginia with all of the arms.
Oh, okay.
So if anything came up and they realized that if Capitol Police started shooting a lot more, he was calling them in to bring their guns. That was what that was for. So yeah, it was a whole it was a fucking conspiracy to overthrow the government. That's exactly what that was.
Yeah, they all had combat tactical gear. They were ready to literally have a war to take over to overthrow the government, or because he was there to support Trump. He was there to make sure that election got turned.
They went in before January 6th to scope the area and yeah, this was
Do you think he was on that tour that fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene gave?
I haven't heard anything, so I'm not gonna.
Okay.
How does she still have a job? Jesus Christ!
Because I think it's a lot harder to get somebody out of Congress.
Because they won't attack their own. It requires a certain number of people, and it requires the right to turn on their own, and the GOP just fucking won't do that.
So other breaking news right now is the GOP says they will not engage in any debates in the next election.
Yeah, so actually what I heard is they will make that anyone who's running for the GOP has to pledge that they will not participate because of they think it's biased on how the Democrats were treated, and they're basing that solely off of because Trump couldn't shut his fucking mouth and not fucking obey the terms of the first debate when he debated Biden. And I don't know if you remember that debate, the first public debate. It was a fucking shit show.
Where he kept interrupting him, and
it was not a debate. It was a fucking toddler fest.
It was.
And so they were like, well, fuck you. So the next one, we're going to go virtual because, hey, COVID, you have COVID, you asshole.
I think I watched that first one over here.
No, we may have watched it on Zoom. We may have had a Zoom party.
Okay.
But then the third one was when they said, after your time, your mic is muted. And that pissed them off because they wanted him to be able to just freely yap and disregard any of the rules. So because the commission, the debate commission, put in rules to install some sort of fucking order to have a debate, the right is like, fuck no, we're not gonna agree to your debates.
It sounds like this is a great sign for who they're going to put forward. Is it going to be him again?
Oh yeah, they're prepping to put him in again.
You think so?
Oh, 100%. I think so. I think
he's probably thinking if he can get back into office, he'll escape any consequences for January 6th.
Well, that's why they need to push this shit through.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
they're moving. You know what? They are moving somewhat quickly. I know they've working with a few others. They're issuing a few more subpoenas, but a lot of people are fucking dodging subpoenas. Merrick Garland's not being as harsh as he could be, and Congress isn't doing it as well.
So I listened
maybe Leonardo DiCaprio needs to make a movie about it.
I was listening to opening arguments today.
You finally listened?
Yeah.
Yay.
But they did an episode on the Merrick Garland speech, and I thought it was interesting because he was going through talking about charging, and he said something that he's like, the way this is worded, I feel like they're going to go after Trump. Like, he's going to get some charges from this. I can't remember what part, but I don't know. I hope so. I'm not holding my breath, but I really fucking hope so. He needs to.
He needs to be brought up on several things. There's still the New York case from the
those are
fraud,
still going.
The financial fraud. I'm honestly still pissed that Georgia hasn't brought him up on election fraud charges because for trying to convince the election commission to find more votes. Like, that literally is an illegal act that he did, and they have the evidence, they have the call, they have the transcript, and that is clearly a crime, and they're not pursuing that. There's several things.
Maybe they're working with the federal government though to include that in any charges, because that's the thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a charge from Georgia. I mean, he called from Washington, D.C. to Georgia for election fraud. And election fraud, is that a federal charge? Because it was for a federal election.
Probably. I'm not a lawyer, so
right.
I don't recall, but I know that. But I think it was the Georgia's Attorney General who had initially launched an investigation into that. So I'm thinking it was state level at that time. But I don't know. I just know that I think you're right. I think he may be trying to run in 2024 to avoid, all these charges. He's gonna do what he does is try to delay,
Mm-hmm.
and I think his hope is he's gonna get that immunity again by being a sitting president if he should win the next election. So I think we'll see.
You heard about the NPR interview that he
I did. He
him?
fucking rage quit.
Well, that was right before that, though. He was going on about Mitch McConnell being a loser. So they're fighting.
And he's tiptoeing around trying to get his supporters to take the vaccine. He's trying to push more therapeutic things. So he's really walking back some things, and then he definitely rage quit over that because he was pressed on his continued election fraud campaigns.
It didn't even seem like rage quitting because it just went silent. He didn't say anything. They started asking the question, and he was just gone. That's not rage quitting. Said, okay, that's oh shit, bye.
He did say, okay, thank you very much. Then hung
not
up.
in the recording I heard. I didn't hear that.
It was on the transcript.
Okay,
it was on the transcript. There was some version he did sign off. But then the guy says, wait, I do have one more question, and tried to press one more thing, and he's gone. So
well, then,
it was 9 minutes into a 15-minute phone call.
So if he says he's ending it, though, and all of that, says thank you, and somebody starts saying something, I'm not even going to say that's rage quitting because he ended. He said thank you. Do we know that the phone was against his ear at the time that he started asking the other question?
Yeah, he was belligerent. I didn't listen to the audio. Because I'm at work, I can only read transcripts, and I read the whole thing, and he's a fucking bumbling idiot.
Yeah, I only heard the NPR article I clicked on only had the clip about fucking Mitch McConnell, him going off on it, and it had where the NPR reporter was started at, I have one more question, and he's like, oh, he's gone. So I didn't hear the full audio.
You know what's worse than listening to Trump speak is trying to read a transcript of Trump speak.
It's so hard.
It's so fucking frustratingly hard because you're like, because the person, and you got to give it to the person who's writing the transcript because they have to magically put in punctuation that didn't exist to try to make some semblance of a. I mean, it's not coherent. It's Trump. It's Trump who we're talking about. But it was so frustrating to read. The man went on some wild tangents, didn't answer the questions that were asked. It was fucking frustrating, but what a fucking idiot. God, I hate the man. I hate hearing him speak. I hate reading him fucking speak. Yeah. But I wanted to see what he...
I loved reading the transcripts of his speeches, like, during his presidency, because none of it made sense. None of it made any sense at all. It's like... These people are like, he's such a great speaker. He speaks facts. He doesn't speak in full sentences.
No, he repeats.
Just like me.
It's so frustrating. All
right, so Sunday morning... in Bronx, New York, there was a fire at an apartment complex. A lot of unfortunate deaths in that one. And as news comes out, we're learning, really, the cause of that fire was capitalism.
It really was. So just to clarify, it was 9 adults and 8 children that broke out on the 19-story building. And initially, they tried to blame it on space heaters. Right.
Well, I think the initial
That's
fire...
what caused the flame.
Yeah, so...
the initial fire.
I live in an apartment complex. The walls in between the apartments are all like cement blocks. I've lived in others where there's like a fireproof wall. You know, they do these in the apartments. There's probably something between the floors to prevent a fire from spreading to other apartments. It's the whole point, and I think it's regulatory, that they build these to where if a fire breaks out, it will not spread.
It's mainly contained.
Yes. And this one, it may have had that, but it was the doors that were an issue.
The safety doors, they failed to close. It's just, poor upkeep.
And residents had been complaining about it, and the people who owned the building never went in and fixed it. So the whole reason that this fire spread the way it did is because the owners of the building did not do what they needed to do to keep that apartment safe.
It was even less than the smoke into the fire. The smoke is what killed them, is mainly what kills these people, the smoke inhalation.
Right,
because it just billows through. The safety doors did not close. And this building, another problem with this building, and I'm just going to say it kind of ties into a racist kind of history of how we develop these areas. Mm-hmm. But in this area, it was built in 1972. Did not have any fire escapes or sprinkler systems throughout the building. Because
is that the Bronx one, or is that the Christmas one?
This is the Bronx. They both, but we'll get to the Philadelphia one. But the Bronx one didn't either, because rules that require both do not apply to the city's older buildings. So they had no means of escape. They have no sprinkler system, the faulty doors, which I think you and I talked about it. Residents had just been so accustomed to just that they had to close the door themselves, or they've never seen the door closed by itself as is intended.
Right.
And, the problem with low-income housing, because I think this was Section 8 housing in the Bronx, is that they can only complain so far. There's really nowhere else they can take that. No.
And, I mean, if technically the owners were abiding the laws with without the fire escape and no sprinklers.
Right.
Technically, but that shouldn't. I mean, you can fucking install fire escapes to an apartment. Hell, I live on the 3rd floor. We don't have fire escapes, and it makes me fucking nervous all the time.
But try convincing someone to spend money when they don't have to.
Right. And this is but that's the state. The state. Was it owned by... Because some apartment buildings accept Section 8, but aren't Section 8, housing.
Yeah, it was owned by Bronx Park Phase 3 Preservation LLC.
So, yeah, it was a corporation. So they just didn't want to spend the money.
No, they didn't want to spend the money. It was poor upkeep. And this underlines another problem, though, is that when maintenance issues aren't addressed, there's not a whole lot that residents can do, because the fear of fucking backlash, being unjustly evicted, or rate hikes for trying to press these issues, that can happen. And these people, they really can't live anywhere else. They're kind of forced to live in these areas. And capitalism drove this problem. Capitalism, and we're going to tie it because just a week prior, the Philadelphia fire.
Now that one, I believe, was the Philadelphia Housing Authority. They owned that property. I remember looking at this, but it was the same thing. They did not have fire escapes. They did not have sprinklers. They were only required for single family dwellings. You only needed one exit, and that's the front door. So, and that one, it was a 5-year-old boy who was he playing with a lighter, and he lit the Christmas tree on fire.
Get your fucking stupid.
I'm fucking amazed that a 5-year-old could flick a lighter. My 16-year-old can't even get a lighter to spark up.
Kids are fucking stupid. So he actually survived. He actually escaped.
He ran out the front door. It was a 2-story, so 2-family dwelling. In these, the top floor had 3 sisters and their children. So there were 14 people in that one.
Quick correction: it was a 3-story. It was 3-story row house.
A 3-story.
But I also heard.
So the first and part of the second story were occupied by one family. The part of the second floor and the third floor were occupied by the second.
And another problem with this, and this is again people not spending money when they don't have to, is that there were no fire extinguishers.
There were no fire extinguishers. The bigger thing is that
Smoke detectors?
the smoke detectors. So the housing authority said they went in and they checked. They replaced all of the smoke detectors with 10-year lithium battery, which are tamper-proof. They're like harder for people to tamper with to get that battery out. So they said that they put 10 of those smoke detectors in there. Well, they're investigating, and there's only one in the basement. The other ones were regular 9-volt batteries, and the batteries, like in 5 of them, were removed.
Four of the actual fire smoke detectors were actually removed and in a drawer, and the 5th one had its battery removed. Just poor upkeep. They didn't have the proper tamper-proof, like you said. And what's interesting is that there was actually a bill introduced in Pennsylvania that would absolutely required them to have the tamper-proof. But the bill never made it to a vote. Again, capitalism drove this. Now the start of the fire, and it's tragic. It's accidental, but the smoke and the fire did not. It could have been preventable. Had there been proper safety equipment, proper upkeep, proper maintenance by the developers, by the owners of the maintenance crew of these buildings, these lives may not have been lost.
I know, like my apartment complex, I've never lived in an apartment where they didn't do annual inspections, and I guess they said they did. I mean, they clearly replaced one thing, but it seems like they just half-assed them all. My apartment has the hardwired smoke detectors, so nobody can fuck with those. But yeah, they come in and like everybody knows theirs is working once a year because they're loud as fuck. But imagine those people out at work, not there when the housing authority came in. They could come in and just be like, "Yep, check," and leave. And
it's such a deadly combination of how these buildings. I mean, they're high rises. They have that many units. No way to escape. It's just all it takes is one incident, and without proper maintenance, safety equipment, safety measures. That's how one of the worst fires in Bronx history in a while. I really think they need to do more. Tennessee needs to do this too. All states, you need more than one fucking exit, even if it's a single family dwelling. When you have people who live on like these here in Knoxville, that there's at least 13 floors, I believe, on this building, right? When you're going down Western into downtown, there's the apartment building on the left, the Summit Hill Apartments. They caught on fire Tuesday morning. Did you hear the fuckery about that right now? I have not heard about all that. They have evacuated 300 residents that have nowhere to fucking go, and they didn't have shelters put up in place beforehand. And so the people that don't have place, they're literally right now struggling to find shelters for them. Yeah, that's what's going to happen anytime there's a fire. That's normal. We don't have, shelters in place for this is an emergency situation. We need these people to be housed. We don't have those. Right. But I know I ended up having a delivery there Tuesday morning, and I walked in and I went into the elevator. My delivery was on the 9th floor, and the first elevator I went to was open. So I went in and I pushed the button, and I'm like, okay, it's not closing. I can see other people. So I walked right out, pushed the button on the outside. I'm like, it's not going to call the other elevator because it's sitting here. But so the elevators, because of this fire, the elevators did not work. The sprinklers went off. It fucked everything up. How the fuck? What if the whole building was in flames and you have people on the 13th fucking floor? They don't have a fire escape. And not only that, this place is literally for people who are 62 or older and on disability. These people can't just trot downstairs. Right. What the fuck? I don't understand why we don't have fire. Anything over 2 stories, in my opinion, there should be a fucking fire escape. Yeah, there needs to be something, but it's capitalism, man. Now Summit Hill, I don't know who owns that. I'm pretty sure it's Knox County Housing Development. I got you. But I want to circle back to the Bronx and Philadelphia because this is also. I read an interesting stat today. And this is on NBC News. I'll link the article in the show notes. Is that the black people are more likely to die, more likely than people of other races to die in accidents like fires. Though black people make up about 13% of the U.S. population, they represent 25% of individuals killed in residential fires across the country. I'll read this quote here. Racism influences almost every way to die by accident in America, and it has for a long, long time. I looked as far back as 1900, and black people die by accident at a higher rate than white people. All accidents total. Accidents are supposed to be unpredictable, unpreventable events. If that were true, accidental deaths would be randomly distributed across the U.S., but it's not. People are not putting proper signs and crosswalks or things like that in these areas. People are getting hit by, pedestrians getting hit. And it's not a fucking accident.
Well, it's like,
I mean, the accidents are accidents, but the design of this, the infrastructure of those of largely black populated areas is kind of by design, and
that's the thing. Like, poor black people live in more condensed spaces. Poor white people, some of them may live in those same spaces, but the bulk of them live rural, and they do have houses. Some of them are small, some of them live in apartments, but like they're not as bunched in, and they're bunched in, and a lot of them live in like Section 8 housing. Okay, so you have the properties that are owned by Section 8 that they have the name projects, which you shouldn't call it, but a lot of people will refer to them as that. But you have individual landlords or companies that own properties who accept Section 8 vouchers. And neither one of them, the housing authorities, the city's supposed to be taking after. You would expect the city to have certain things that they're supposed to do for those housing. But from Philadelphia, it shows that I know people who live in the housing developments that the city doesn't take care of those as well as you would expect the city to. It seems like it's their responsibility. But the individuals who accept Section 8, some of those are like the shittiest fucking people out there. They will straight up neglect every responsibility they have.
Well, let's talk about the Bronx, for instance. How many space heaters did they say were used, and why were they necessary?
That was my first question: is why did they need that many space heaters? Did they not have heat in their fucking apartment? Because and especially it started on the 9th floor, correct?
It was. I
believe it started on the 9th floor. Okay. I live in a 3rd floor. I'm about in the middle of my building, like almost directly in the middle of the building. And in the winter, my electric bill goes down because last year I went a while without heat while they were working on it. And I had a space heater that was about 12 inches by 12 inches that was able to take care of my entire apartment because heat rises. So I was getting the heat from the apartments down below and my neighbor's heat. So, you don't need that much. I imagine living on the 9th floor, you have all the heat from the people around and the people surrounding you. So I know it's colder up there too, but even on our coldest days here, I think when my heat was out last year, it was during one of those really fucking, it's 0 degrees outside, 2-day periods that we get here.
But I can second that. I lived in an apartment in Oak Ridge. I was on the 2nd floor. I'm not sure what temperature the lady beneath me kept her, but my energy bill went down. It didn't have to run as much because I was getting the benefit of the heat from the unit below me. So I think you're right. There had to been there could be these are older buildings and they're not being well managed. There could be insulation problems.
Yep.
Any number of things that aren't being taken care of because they don't fucking have to. Right? All they have to, and because, again, something I mentioned or alluded to earlier, is that these people don't really have a lot of choices on where they can, especially in the Bronx, in New York, where it's fucking expensive to live. There's not a lot of places where these people can live, and the fear of eviction, of unjust eviction, is a real thing. And you've shared some stories. Let's just shit on some landlords in general, shall we?
How you doing, Sam?
Hey, Sam.
It's actually currently not for rent. I need to get it back up.
You're currently not a landlord?
No, not currently. But I need to fix the place up. There's some damage to it. Anyways,
one of the things you shared, and what was kind of appalling was some of the letters that people got sent out, Al, that had received not a $40 increase to their rent, not a $60 or $80 increase. It went from, I think, $900 to $1,200 is one of the letters that you shared out.
My apartment complex, when I moved in there were a handful of white families. I mean, it was predominantly black. Black and Hispanic. The rent there was $640 when I moved in there. 1 year later, it was about 8 months later, a company bought it out. And when they came in, the first thing they did, they raised our rent to $840. It was a 33% increase on our rent. And you want to know what the demographic is now?
I can only imagine.
There's a whole lot more white people living there. I hate it.
And it's because a lot of places, there's very little. Some states do have rules. Some states do have laws that protect tenants that rent, but
most don't. There are very, very few states who have laws to protect. Most states, their landlord-tenant laws benefit the landlord. Very few states, and most of those are ones that people got up and started tenant unions. And that's what most states need to do, is get tenant unions going so that we can fight for better. Because, like, what landlords are really fucked up right now. We had the eviction,
the moratorium.
Yeah.
It's ending. They're really ready to push to fucking evict.
But they were already they continued because you couldn't evict somebody for their inability to pay rent, but you could find a million other bullshit reasons to evict them, and they did, especially black families. They continued to suffer evictions throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, there's very little protections, and these people, that's why they can't, that's why a lot of the maintenance goes undone, because there are some states that allow people to not have to pay rent when maintenance issues go unaddressed. Mm-hmm. But the moment they pull that, then they can get unjustly evicted for something else. There's very, very little protection these people have. They just have to fucking deal with it, and it's unfortunate. And again, like you said, this article that NBC laid out is, it really adversely affects the black population in those centralized areas where there's dense populations, because there's really not a lot of places they can go, and they have to just kind of fucking deal with it.
I think it's by design. Like I said, I think America's aiming for slums being a normalized thing.
Well, they literally designed cities that way. They purposely built bridges to section off, to portion off and separate those areas. It was, of course, it's by design. 100%. It has been and continues to be.
So this article lays out the percentage of renters and percentage of evictions. And it breaks it down from black, white, Latinx.
No, that's the dumb. That's the dumb
and
Gen
Asian.
Z thing. Latinx is the thing Gen Z
I
is
know
pushing
a lot
that
of adults,
Latin people don't actually want to use.
I know a lot of adults who will use it.
I know a lot of Latino people who tell white people to shut the fuck up.
We're not getting into that.
I haven't heard Latinx.
So the black population makes up 20% of renters and 32% of evictions. White people make up 52% of renters and 45% of evictions. Latinx population, it's 21% of renters and 17%, I'm quoting this article, 17% of evictions. Asians is 5% of renters and only 2% of evictions. So like the disproportion, we're looking at white to black, 52% of renters are white and they make up 46%, which is...
Yeah, lopsided. It's lopsided compared to the black population.
Black people make up 20% of renters and 32% of evictions.
I mean, again, like Sam and I said, it is by design. It's how they keep them in poverty, but the cities, again, we've literally designed cities to keep the black population in poverty. Literally, that's how it's done.
What happens when people get evicted? I mean, you don't even have to go to court. As soon as somebody files an eviction on you, you can move out that day, and it still counts against you on your record. It still makes it harder for you to rent. And this is why, what also makes up a larger portion of the houseless population?
You're right.
This is why. I mentioned earlier, one of those apartments in Philadelphia, it was 3 sisters and their children, totaling 14 people in that apartment. Why do you think they had to live like that? Because that's not comfortable for any of them. Nobody chooses to live with 14 fucking people. Most people don't even choose to live with their siblings and their kids when they have families. People want their own space. But you have these families, and I think this goes on fairly often in low-income families, and part of it is because they can't rent somewhere else because they have this eviction. Or they need to go in with 3 adults to be able to have the credit and everything that's needed to get an apartment. They can't get it on their own. Like, this isn't comfortable living that we are subjecting these people to.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're not getting anything through Congress to fix this, to Build Back Better, and some of the infrastructure had things like that to help address a lot of those issues. It's really unfortunate what Congress and the Senate is doing right now to stall every kind of legislative agenda that is intended to, and by and large, are very popular fucking things that people really fucking support, but because they use trigger words, socialism, communism. They get the right. The GOP is they're out of it. None of the 50 senators have agreed to vote on any of the critical bills that America really fucking needs to fix its infrastructure and to take care of its fucking people. And we're shitting on 2, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. But it's also the 50 fucking senators on the GOP who are also idly by letting fucking America literally crumble. And failing to address those fucking things that these are popular things that America wants, but they can just turn their base. But all they have to do is just fuck the liberals or fuck the Democrats, and they score political points.
And this is why I say we can't listen to these fucking people. We have to railroad them. Other countries get this shit done. Germany's fixed their housing crisis by just having the government step in. Think about that happening here. What if the government stepped in and was like, no, we're giving housing back to the people? Like, how would fucking Republicans react?
You've got a great point, because while it fixes a major fucking problem of homelessness, we have these buildings that are not even being fucking used, but they're so against big government, except when it fucking benefits them.
Go ahead.
Of course they wouldn't fucking vote for that.
I mean, like I said, you can't really... There's no argument to have with these people anymore. Like, how are you going to explain this to them? They're so indoctrinated that you can't really be like, hey, this isn't within your best interest to want this. You're actually really poor. Why do you think you're not poor? Hey, Republicans, why do you think you're not poor?
They're easily fucking distracted. They don't care about how it may benefit them. They get the short, we're denying Joe Biden, and that's all they fucking care about.
And that's why they're fascists. Like, they care more about race issues or controlling women than they do about their own wealth or security.
Well, and they're also now saying we've mentioned before, but they're going against this, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and there's 2 voting rights bills going through right now that we're not going to fucking get.
They're not.
And they're fucking common sense fucking bills,
because they're fascists. That's all the answers.
I want to go back and read this.
What does every fascist deserve?
I want to read these 2 paragraphs from this NPR article.
Is this regarding to the housing?
Yeah. I think it's quoting a lawyer. He says, it's a downward cycle exacerbated by the pandemic. Black families are more likely to rent rather than to own their own homes, and to pay a larger share of their income when they do rent. They also tend to have a smaller financial cushion to cover emergencies. Now, during the pandemic, blacks are more likely than whites to have lost their jobs and 3 times as likely to be hospitalized with COVID. being evicted only increases those risks, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention.
They're keeping racism alive and well without saying it out loud by maintaining these policies, by not investing in infrastructure in those areas.
The GOP is saying it out loud now. I mean, they're pretty clear on it. They're
just trying to see how openly fascist they can actually be. Trump helped them a lot. How open about it can we be?
If you listen to some of their debates, they're pretty. They may not say the words. They could say, "Oh, and that's not what we mean," but it's very clear what they're meaning and what they're saying. And it's they do not care about black people.
Or they don't care about black
votes.
people or poor people, even though a lot of the GOP are fucking poor.
Well, I mean,
GOP supporters, but all they care about are trigger words, abortion or some other thing, and then everything that the Democratic policies that would literally benefit them regarding, healthcare for one thing. They don't give a fuck. It literally benefits them. Everything.
I see them the same as fucking fascists. They're fascist soldiers. They're completely brainwashed. Their entire purpose of life is not for themselves, but for benefiting fascism. Like, they don't have autonomy as people, to me. Because if they did, they would.
Protecting the rich. It's protecting their wealth. That's all they fucking care about is protecting their own
the
wealth.
rich's wealth. They've been turned into blind soldiers for fascism, that they don't care about their own health and welfare of themselves or their family.
They really don't. They really truly don't.
At that point, I don't. They're not an autonomous person to me. When you don't care about your own well-being to the point where you will sacrifice your life, your well-being of your family and your neighbors, you are a soldier for someone else.
Well, I mean, those soldiers are drinking their own pee now, so, I mean, you tell their intelligence level.
Yeah, I mean, these are not, they may be somewhat progressive, but they're still somewhat even centrist policies. These aren't like super left policies that are being pushed through that would benefit them, that would bring infrastructure to the area, that would save fucking lives. Medicare, there is no fucking... The medical care in the United States is a fucking joke. There's a person on TikTok who just comes on and just shits. They live in Germany. And these other countries have fucking figured it out. They've, some of the other countries have really figured out how to take care of their fucking population. In the United States, we know how to... They just refuse to enable those things because of how they spin it to the. And I'm going to say that to the right. The right is against it because they think they're paying for socialism. They think there's people. They convince everyone that everyone's fucking trying to leech and trying to defraud and just take what's yours instead of trying to.
The people that are taking what's theirs.
Yeah, we're in a society, motherfucker. We have to support each other. You think you survive on your own? You don't.
That's why. Like I said, they're inherently bad people. Like, that's why they like Trump. His supporters are not good people because they like him because he reflects the pieces of shit that they are.
They've done a really good job doing the us versus them. And when you think about, I think back at, the fucking immigrants are coming to take our jobs. I remember getting in a debate with somebody on the right about this. It was like, but you understand companies are voluntarily paying these people less than minimum wage. And that's why they're getting the work is they'll work for less. Do you not understand that those are the companies exploiting those people? If these companies said, no, this is the minimum wage, then or this is what we're paying everybody, no matter what, no matter where you come from, would it be an equal playing ground then? The only reason they're like, well, yeah, they'll work for less, but that's, it's still their fault. No, it's the companies. It's the companies that are exploiting this cheap-ass labor.
We had one in Tennessee somewhat recently. It was a meat plant. I'm not sure where in Tennessee. They had 300-something that they raided, that they had that many illegals immigrants from... And you had to... This is Tennessee. You gotta think that's probably a fucking right-winger businessman, but he knows how to fucking save money by exploiting cheap
and
labor.
the thing is do you think these people want to be making $4 a fucking hour or sometimes less? No, nobody wants to. Those are the only jobs that they can find. And it's still exploitation. No matter how you fucking look at it, it's exploitation. They're exploiting people. That's why I've been noticing this trend now with people who pay very shitty wages at like fast food, the fast food companies that are still paying really shitty wages. They're specifically seeking out teens. I've been seeing these in a lot of like community groups, like Oak Ridge groups. And I'm enjoying the comment section on these, though, because every time someone goes in there, I think it actually, I saw it in a Carnes group last week, I think. The manager of Ingles on Merchants was... Look, he's like, we're really needing employees. If any of your teenage children are looking for jobs.
I would like to exploit the youth.
And man, he got ripped the fuck up in the comments of people like, why are you looking for kids? Maybe you wouldn't have a hard time finding people to work if you paid more than $8.25. I think it was $9.25 an hour. And then, like, I did see somebody in the comments, an older person, who's like, everybody's so entitled. What makes you think your kid deserves more than $7.25? We started out at minimum wage, and I looked at it. I'm like, it's not about. My comment on there was like, if my kid can get $12 an hour doing the same work somewhere else, why the fuck would I suggest that they go work for $9 or $7 an hour? I'm like, this isn't entitlement or anything else. It's fucking common sense. I've been telling my kid's about to start working, and I drill into him all the time. I'm like, go for the companies that will pay. Those are the companies that will probably give you more benefits. They value their marginally more, maybe, or at least they're smart enough to know they have to take care of their employees some. Do not fucking go get a minimum wage job.
Yeah, they really, especially the right, probably solely the right, really has a problem with paying a fucking decent wage for what they consider unskilled labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't understand. Like, I mean, because they still depend and rely on to be able to go those places. And they don't think that anyone deserves a fucking living wage. They think that doing X job for X, you know, there was a project. It was a lever activated. It was a lever you would rotate. And you would rotate it and you would spin it. And every time you rotate it, every so often, a penny would fall out. And you would do so, and if you did that for an hour, $7.25 would accumulate.
Right.
And it was just to show how much fucking work and how very little your efforts for fucking minimum wage would be. And no one would sit there. You know, you couldn't convince a single fucking person on the right to sit there for 8 hours a fucking day just spinning that and doing nothing else. It requires nothing. It requires no thought. Requires no skill. You're just sitting there spinning it, and they think that that's good enough for people who have to work in fast-paced environments. They don't fucking understand it.
Well, in one of the comments, there were only, I think, 5 comments in the whole thread that were people defending the low wages. But one of these are teenagers. They don't have bills to pay. They probably don't even pay their own gas. I'm like, are you fucking stupid?
Exploit your children when they're young and don't understand the worth of money.
I'm over here. Okay, I know most of the teenagers I know have at least one bill, whether it's their phone bill or their insurance that they pay. The ones that are working. My kid doesn't even have they have a cell phone, but it doesn't have phone service because they're either at school, home, or with friends who have a phone that can call. But my kid's not getting phone service on their phone until they have a job to pay for it. My kid's not going to be driving until they can pay their insurance and they can pay gas. Not all parents can afford to do that shit for their kids and just give them all the money that they want. A lot of kids have to work to be able to drive to and from school, to and from work, to have a phone. And you know what? There's a lot of teenagers out there who have to work to help pay the bills in their home.
No, absolutely.
You know? It's when you talk about fucking entitlement, it's entitlement and privilege is what they were saying. It's entitlement and privilege to think that no teens out there have bills to pay.
And I think it has to stem from because they don't understand the change in times. They're still in fucking boomer mode.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is the older folks who, they only one person had to work. The woman would stay home and cook and clean, and they were able to fucking buy a home, 2 cars, put their kids to school. And that's not the reality these days. If you look at the stats on what has increased versus minimum wage, I mean, it's fucking out. The housing, food, fuel, education is huge. Healthcare went up massively. Everything
across the fucking board, except for Little Caesars fucking hot and ready's.
I saw the post.
They only went 5. But in the last 20 years, that's the only thing that did not go up until this year. It went up to $5.55 for those hot and ready's.
I will never financially be able to recover from this. But someone made a post, and it really kind of sunk in. Is that in slave era times when minimum wage was $0 an hour, the best we got to $7.25 in 2021.
That's how far we've come up. We went from $0 an hour for the people that with power see as the lowest of society. It went from $0 an hour to $7.25 in this much fucking time.
Yeah, and meanwhile, fuel. I remember fuel alone is a huge one that went up in fucking magnitude. When I was getting ready to start driving, gas was 85 cents.
When my brother started driving, it was 85 cents. I didn't start driving until I was like 18. Because my mom's a cunt. But so at 18, when I started driving, it was already over $1, and I think that next year it was up to like $2, because the next year was after 9/11, and I think I remember $2
how
after
mad I was living in San Antonio. I remember how mad people got when it got over $1. And now it's over. It's upwards of 3 in some areas of the country, well over 4,
5. I've seen it in California. I've seen it up to 5 or 6, 7.
But housing has drastically. I mean, your housing increased 33% in 8 months. Just imagine what education has skyrocketed. Healthcare has skyrocketed, and
that's another thing.
These people can't keep up. That's why these people are living with fucking 14 people in a single house.
Even if these teenagers that are going out to work, even if they don't have bills, how do you why can't we let these kids that don't have bills save up money to pay for school? You can't do that on $7.25 an hour these days with the cost of school. That's not going to pay for a college education.
And let's just be frank, you can't. Let's say they're on their own. They can't live on. Let's say they go up to 11 or 12. Literally, 11 and 12 is just not enough to do it. You can't. Single household individuals it's hard to do. It's very hard to do when you're first entering the workforce.
My kid, they're getting close to graduation age, so they're looking at colleges, and they got a close relationship with their cat. And
do you say with their cat?
With their cat, yeah.
Okay.
Those two
I like
are bonded.
how you went from looking at colleges into a great relationship with their cat.
Well, it's relevant. So they're thinking of housing when they're in school, and they're like, well, the dorms, I probably can't have my cat. And so they're like, how realistic is it for me to have my own apartment while going to school? I'm like, very, very unrealistic unless you have 4 roommates.
Right.
And they're like, so they were concerned. They did find out that the school does accept emotional support animals, so we're gonna get that set up.
Nice.
So that they can have their cat in their dorm.
It's another thing that went up. Fucking the books the books that they're required on the fucking syllabuses are fucking outrageous.
I made it through school without ever buying the books. I was really smart about
Did you pirate your books? Did you pirate your books?
Well, the second time I went through school, I pirated. The first time I did buy most books because I was on a scholarship that paid for books. The second time when I went back, I did a lot of pirating. I had teachers that I would just go up to and say, hey, look, I can't afford a book. and they would either give me an old edition or something like that. I made it through, but at the same time, like, I couldn't afford. That's still the thing. I could not afford the books. That's why I had to go alternate ways.
You know what? Something I saw on Reddit, and this kind of enraged me. And this is probably not the only story of this happening. Is one of the professors made their students buy their book, which is only available at the bookstore. So, and then when they got to class, he fucking hole punched or something to damage, so they couldn't be returned at the end of the semester. Swear to fuck this. I don't know how. This is a story on Reddit. It was substantiated. Someone else commented that happened to me too.
Was that at Cleveland State Community College by chance?
You know what? I read the story. I read this a month or two ago. I don't have the actual school name, but I remember it was because professors. Some of these professors they do.
Yeah,
write,
I had a professor who was writing the science book that would be used for our school. They're literally trying to
fuck over their students. Yeah. They're already poor. The education system is shit. And again, because we claim to be a first class fucking or first world country, but when you look at where we are in education, where we are in healthcare, where we're in anything that we're the first in fucking capitalism. That's about it.
We're a first world country, but those like feed the children commercials that we have here.
Yes.
Other countries have those about us.
I saw the one from Germany.
It's not just Germany. There's a few countries airing these commercials showing poor American kids saying help feed, and they're citing the true statistics on food insecurity.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
Like it's horrible here.
We're only first in fucking military. We're first in capitalism, our gross
prison
domestic products,
population.
First in prison population. But when it comes to actually taking fucking care of our citizens, we're not there. We're nowhere near the top.
We're pretty far
I
down.
actually made one of my former bosses mad. Who was like, "You don't think we're the greatest country in the world?" It's like, "Fuck no, we're not. Fuck no, we're not. We don't even rank anywhere near on the happiest of countries because, we don't take care of our fucking people. You go to a country, people. I love the stories on Reddit where they visit a country, they fall and they break their leg, and they're so afraid. They're like, yeah, that's $5 or whatever. They're expecting some massive bill, and they're like, no, there's really no healthcare cost. There's like $5 for whatever whatever thing you needed, but they left with fucking nothing. You ride a fucking ambulance here, and it's what $1,200. I don't fucking know. It's expensive. It's stupid, and that's why the majority of bankruptcies in America. A lot of it stemmed from just medical care.
Right.
It's stupid.
Well, that's with the fucking school board. One of the meetings I spoke at, I brought up the fact that, when they're talking about, well, COVID only affects people with pre-existing conditions and things like that. I'm like, the thing is that we're not just concerned about these kids getting sick. We're concerned about them taking it home to their parents. I was like, and if one of these parents goes into hospital bills or goes into the hospital, those bills may put that family, make them homeless.
Absolutely.
These are having widespread, the decisions they're making. It's not just about whether little Timmy gets a sniffle. No, we're looking at the bigger picture and the chain reaction it can set off, which could absolutely make families homeless. And it is. Yeah. It's making people homeless.
And the right is just voting against every effort doing so. Real quick, I brought it up earlier, the Voting Rights Act. That's going to be dead.
Yeah.
There's two bills right now that would...
Just like the COVID mandate. Or the vaccine mandate.
The SCOTUS rule shot down for large businesses the vaccine mandate, but did allow the mandate for healthcare workers. So that's still pissing people off on the right. They're not celebrating it because it's still mandating that healthcare workers have the vaccine mandate.
It's common fucking sense.
Yeah, but they're not common sense people. But when I read what was in these voting rights bills, it's also common sense shit. Things that I think would benefit if your goal is to allow every American to vote. An election holiday for Election Day, same day fucking voter registration when you go to vote, expanding ballot drop-off boxes, allow mail-in voting for anyone for whatever reason. A lot of things that just allow people to vote. And the Republicans are happily saying out loud, we don't want these things. And
We have
disguising
to
it
change
under...
the way we deal with
Here's
fascism.
what amazes me, though. Like, same-day voting would almost, like... Okay, so when I registered to vote, all I needed to do is send in a form. I didn't have to prove my identity in any way, shape, or form. I just sent in a form with my information on it. At least same-day voting, you have the person there, you're checking their ID, you're making sure all the information is correct.
Hey, and they're there signing. You have their signature right there.
You're seeing, like, it almost seems like you can validate voters better with same-day registration than, mail-in registration, which we currently have.
Other things, one of the biggest problems in predominantly minority areas is because of they've reduced the amount of polling locations is the massive amount of wait times, and they do that on purpose. They want to just discourage people from when they see that line. They're like, "Oh, fuck that! I'm not voting today." They want to act. So another thing there was to have enough locations that would limit wait times to 30 minutes. It also eliminates stupid fucking laws that prevents people from handing out water and things like that. These are all common sense things. None of the GOP have signed on for it because they know it would kill them to have voting be that easy. And so Chuck Schumer and Biden's pressing, well, let's fucking axe the filibuster. Let's just get our 50 plus 1. Let's do that. And we can't even fucking do that because Kirsten Sinema...
They won't budge on the filibuster.
They won't budge on the filibuster. And I rage on it because I know I raged on it before. As soon as there's a situation where there's a Republican-controlled Congress, Senate, and presidency, and if it's only a slim margin, I can't say they wouldn't immediately axe the filibuster if they were in control.
All I gotta say is everybody on the right, or on the left, I'm sorry, everybody on the left needs to show up and fucking vote.
Well, I think that's the only way out. The way we deal with fascism, it's not going to be fucking votes, you fucking liberals. You have to change the way you react to fascism, and that means your friends that are Republicans and your family that are Republicans, because to support Republicans now, you have to support their fascist base, which we said is destroying them.
They still need to vote, though.
But voting,
still need to vote,
one,
but it's going to take a whole lot more than voting.
So typically,
because they're trying to control the voting,
and especially, really, like the thing is these midterm elections, we may not be able to keep fucking Republicans from taking shit back in Congress or Senate, whatever.
They've almost ensured it with what they've done with gerrymandering and what they've done with Georgia,
but
Pennsylvania.
The bigger thing is like these fucking local elections.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones where we don't have an electoral college over any of this shit. It is like, I know Knoxville showed the fuck up on this last election, which was great because we had some fucking Elizabeth. We had a someone who fucking will drink her urine, who will drink her urine while pregnant, run for city council. I was fucking terrified, but people showed up at the voting. We kept all of them, her and her fellow
nut job, right-wing, I would say almost extreme right-wingers.
They're extreme right-wingers. We kept them all out, but this is in every city. They're trying to get our local government. And we do have more control in our local government with who we put up and who we elect. And we need to show up for that. And if you can keep them out of your city, maybe if we keep them out of enough cities, we can keep them out of, Congress and Senate as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're already going to make sure your city government's taken care of, make sure to go vote for those higher offices too. I'm not super hopeful on what we do on the federal level, but I'm like, please, for the love of God, these local, we have to.
Yeah, they're all important. They're all important, but I mean, we do have to change the narrative. Being quiet's not working anymore. Sitting idly by and just hoping to vote because they are actively changing how voting works through gerrymandering and everything else to ensure that they, as a minority, continue to hold power wherever they can.
Mm-hmm. And they're really wanting to limit everybody's rights. So
and being championed for doing so, it's really disheartening. It's going to be a lengthy episode, guys, but we do have some updates for some local shit, and let's get into our ACAB.
This is ACAB of the week.
So I actually saw a lot of fucked up cop stories this week, but we have learned some things since last week when we talked about David Hayes and his arrest. I think we issued a correction that it was Knox County Sheriff's Department, not KPD, who was responsible for that arrest. But we've since found out that it was at the directive of KPD. So they were definitely involved. What had happened is the city council members they were very clear that he did not want KPD there, that they wanted to hear from the community, and KPD got salty as fuck. So they decided one of the community organizers should go to jail, and he was arrested for blocking the roads during a protest after Ant was killed last year.
This was in April of 2021.
So for fucking 8 months, they know where he fucking lives. I don't think he's moved. He's lived there for years. They know where he fucking lives.
He's been at events since then as well.
Right.
He's a prominent he's a prominent organizer.
Yes, he's
been at events since then.
And they did not even try to arrest him any time. They decided that night was the night to do it, and they wanted to do it publicly. They wanted to make a point. He did come out with a busted lip. The Knox County Sheriff's Department for a while had his mugshot, which they didn't use a current mugshot. They used one from several years ago, because if you watch all the videos, yeah, it's like purple, pink, orange.
I didn't think that was his hair. I didn't think that was.
No,
I was like, this
you watch the videos. His hair's. I'm pretty sure his hair is still longer, and it was like a buzz cut and dyed like a pinkish orange.
Yeah.
It's a weird color. So that's the first thing: is why did you use an old?
Because they didn't
mugshot?
really book him. Did they? I mean, did they actually book him? Do the?
I mean, he got new charges.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and those new charges were aggravated assault and inciting a riot. Now
inciting a riot.
Yeah,
I heard I did see those.
Okay, first we're gonna, because the inciting a riot is the absolute ludicrous charge here, because there was no fucking riot. Nothing at all. I don't know how they think they don't care. They don't care. It's about harassing, wasting his time and money. That's the only reason they put that on there. But the aggravated assault is the big one, because I've known David Hayes for about 5 years now. I had heard of him before, knew who he was. David, his chill level is like no one I have ever met before. I've seen him in situations where he keeps his tone flat and even. He's just, when it comes to the nonviolent techniques that he studied, he's got them down. He does not flip out. He does not lose his cool. He goes limp. He'll go quiet. He
Civil
will.
disobedience.
They're saying he spit on them,
and that's why they shoved his head into the wall.
No. They didn't say they shoved their head.
He moved his head out of the way.
The officer in the report said that he spit on him, and so he redirected his head towards the wall.
With several fists, apparently.
David Hayes is like, no, they were pushing me around. They were leaning on me. He's like, they had their arm on my neck, pushing me against the wall. And, you know, when, like, something's pressing on you, you kind of feel like you have to cough. And I couldn't, and I finally was able to cough. And when I coughed, they said I spit on them. And that's where he aggravated assault, because, and then he said they proceeded to punch him in the face 2 or 3 times. And when he left the court, news stations, like the news stations were already there. So Knox News Sentinel did a video interview of him, and you could see his mouth busted up.
Knox
You
News
can
Sentinel is the
tell.
best at this.
Knox News Sentinel has been going after our local police. Knox News Sentinel and Hard News Wire, but they're or knoxhardwire.com. They're Knox Hardwire's like out of commission right now. They've had a family emergency.
Yeah, I'd point out to you that I'd read an article on WVLT, which is another substation. I'm not
That's
sure.
racist news.
It kind of is. When I read how they wrote their article in contrast to how Knox News...
The cops control WVL. They all the lettered stations.
The narrative was pro-police, anti...
The cops write that.
Yeah.
When I learned from my case,
Yeah.
the cops literally write it and give it to those stations. WVLT, Channel 6, Channel...
WATE, and then
Yeah,
Channel
the-
10, Channel 10's WBIR. Okay.
Yeah. The big three, the cops tell them what to say. It
was
is
very evident
state-controlled
It was
media.
very evident the bias in that article compared to what the facts that were presented that were omitted or disregarded in the other articles.
According to those articles, Sam is a violent rioter.
Nice. Good
According
job.
to the courts,
Good job, bud.
and all documentation that everybody had, Sam did not do any rioting at all.
Well, that's why it's going to be interesting if they try to actually bring anything against Hayes to the court, because...
They can't.
Yeah.
Hey, so real quick, now obviously Knox County would have a great defense by this for their body cams, right?
Nope. The very last sentence of their police report of David's arrest was no body cam footage available.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
They should immediately... Anytime a body camera is off, they should be fined
Now,
personally.
does
The officer
KCSO,
themselves.
do they have requirements like KPD does?
We're kind of doing some research on that because we did. A friend and I went through. We looked hard. So when looking for the body camera policies for the department, KPD has theirs on a website. You can read every detail. It does require the officers to have them on during every interaction with the public, unless it's like you see somebody at the gas station and they're like, "Hey man, what's up?" You don't have to turn it on for that. But if it's on a call of any kind or you're making an arrest, you have to have that body cam on. Knox County Sheriff Department, we cannot find any documentation on their policy.
Knox County Sheriff is shady as shit.
They
but
are.
The thing is, Knox County Sheriff they're not different from Knox County Police in any real sort of way. They're different agencies, but they talk to each other, they help each other. They're the same with different names and different policies that one can get away with a little more.
It's kind of
on
weird to
paper.
me because other places I've lived, there's always this jurisdictional issue between city and county. Like down in Cleveland, Bradley County does not go into Cleveland to handle shit. It's like as soon as you hit Bradley County or Cleveland city limits here, Cleveland, Tennessee, as soon as you hit Cleveland city limits, the Bradley County Sheriff's Department will back off because they know they don't have jurisdiction.
Yeah.
It's weird here in Knoxville because Knox County is all over here.
Right.
Like, you can get pulled over in Knoxville by the county or the city police. And that's just really fucking strange to me. Because that's other places I've lived. I mean, I use Cleveland as an excuse, but I've lived in a lot of towns, and that's always a thing, that this jurisdictional fight between the two and who gets things, they don't seem to care. They share it. They're just like, the more people we bust, let's do it.
Well, they I don't know if I mentioned on the last show, but there was a vehicle theft that I was helping a gentleman with, and as soon as they got wind that because it was being traced that the vehicle may have been in Anderson County, KPD backed the fuck off, said, sorry, you have to call Anderson County. So it's very interesting. But I want to circle back because there's something I read, I don't know how true this is. When David went limp and they picked him up, did they not grab him by the hoodie and choke him, or did he not get didn't he have his airway restricted? There's something I read.
I don't know about that. What
is.
I do know is, so he's laying on the ground. They're screaming, "Stop resisting!" He's like, "I'm not resisting." When they scream while they're saying "Stop resisting," they have his hands behind his back, and he's just laying there on the ground. Then they take his feet and push it into his back. So it's in the hog-tie position, but he wasn't actually hog-tied. And he's like, why are you doing that? And that's the whole thing. He's just laying there and being like, calling them out as they're doing it. Why are you doing that? Why, like, you don't have to do that. I'm here. I'm not resisting.
This was pretty brazen, even for them.
It was brazen. Like, and they took them back into their little office in the city county building. Are there no cameras there? There were so many fucking cops around. Not a single fucking one of them had their body camera on. They knew they were going to arrest him. They knew damn well because it was planned.
Yeah.
They went in to make sure he was there. It was fucking planned to arrest them there, but not a single fucking one of them turned their body camera on.
They know they can harass a black man and get away with it. That's what.
They picked the wrong fucking one.
Yeah, in a holding room that was not visible to the public, with no body cams, and their word against David.
And my biggest thing here, though, is David's high profile. He is very well known in our community. And not even in our community. I was telling a friend of mine in Nashville about it. He's like, I know David Hayes. David Hayes is known on a larger level, too. He's very well respected. They knew whatever came out of this that the community would be upset about. What are they doing to people who don't have as much of a spotlight on them as David Hayes has? Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, I can tell you, there's been so many arrests that you look on the 24-hour arrests and things like that. You can see a lot of them with busted up faces.
You absolutely can.
And and these people don't have, David Hayes has lawyers because community support. A lot of these people don't understand that. If you
I told you how they tried to abuse us when we were arrested. They tried to literally force us to take a lawyer that would not have been for our case. The one defender that was a Trump supporter. They went out of their way to try to push the public defender that was the one Trump supporter of the public defenders, because public defenders are usually good people who are trying to help people. So therefore they wouldn't be Republican.
So if you're an activist in this town and you get arrested, like, we have things set up. We have lawyers on standby to take your case. But if you're not an activist and you're just somebody who's poor and you're not even really in the activist world and the cops beat you up, you report it. Who do you report it to?
Yeah.
You can't afford a lawyer. You can't afford all this stuff. These people don't have the recourse that like David Hayes does. And they're getting fucking away with it.
And there's probably something we can say for almost a larger segment is, how they kind of get people who are probably innocent of the charges or could have gotten, they get them to plea deals that fuck them up because it's the easiest route for them.
Yes.
And I know that's probably for a larger segment, but it's something they do. It's a tactic they use. And
they're destroying people's lives by doing it. And I mean, causing serious injuries. We still don't know. So a quick little update on Robert Bailey, who was shot by KPD. So they do have body cam and in-cam footage for that. They sent out a release to media saying that they were prepared to release all of that. But just before they showed it to the family has seen it. They said the city planned to publicly release the footage Friday. However, shortly after the family reviewed nearly 1.5 hours of video, the city received an order from the criminal court of for Knox County, signed by Judge Stephen W. Sword, prohibiting disclosure of the footage until further action by the court. So they usually do that when they're looking at whether they're going to charge people. So they may be, there's something on this one, because they didn't do that for Ant.
It's just further confirmation that KPD's pieces of shit, KCSO's a piece of shit, ACAB, right? That's why we have this segment, and that's why we easily fill it week after week. Well, guys, that's going to wrap us up for episode 47 of Apostates on the Fringe. Thank you guys again for joining us this week. As always, you can check us out on social media. If you'd like to contact the show or get links to the articles, you can visit us at apostatepod.com. We will see you all next week.
Fuck KPD and KCSO.
I'll double that.
Fuck urine drinkers.
Yeah, fuck them too. Oh my God.
Thank you all very much.
opinions of the hosts of Apostates on the Fringe do not represent the views and opinions of the Atheist Society of Knoxville. For links to all our musical contributors, go to apostatepod.com and check the About Us page. A big thank you to Michael Scott Arden, who allows the show to use his full catalog.